Blood is thicker than water, Robert Castellano announced to the photographer, physically moving my chair out of the frame for the family Christmas photo. I stepped aside without protest, watching my half-siblings arrange themselves around their father like planets orbiting the sun. What Robert didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the full quote is "the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." And my mother had understood that better than anyone. "Sarah, you can take some pictures with your phone after we're done with the professional shots," Robert's wife Linda said with that apologetic smile she'd perfected over the years, the one that said "I'm sorry, but you know how he is." I nodded and pulled out my phone, pretending to scroll while Robert's biological children, Megan, 23, and Tyler, 20, posed with their parents. The photographer, a young woman named Jasmine, kept glancing at me with confusion, clearly wondering why one family member was being excluded. "Is your daughter not in the photo?" she finally asked. "Stepdaughter," Robert corrected sharply. "And no, this is for immediate family only. I was married to her mother for 16 years, Linda offered weakly. "Sarah's practically. Practically isn't the same as actually," Robert cut her off. "Blood is blood. That's just how it is." I'd heard variations of this speech my entire adult life. Robert had married my mother when I was 6, after my father died in a construction accident. For 10 years he'd been, not cruel exactly, but distant. Polite. The kind of stepfather who paid for things because that's what was expected, but never showed up to school plays or asked about my day. Then my mother got sick. Ovarian cancer, stage 4, discovered too late. She fought for 6 years and Robert stayed. I'll give him that. He stayed and paid the medical bills and held her hand in the hospital. But he never quite looked at me the same way after she died. Like I was an obligation he'd inherited, not a daughter he'd chosen. That was 8 years ago. I was 22 when Mom died. Now, at 30, I'd built my own life. A small but successful interior design business in Portland, a cute apartment in the Pearl District, and a chosen family of friends who actually wanted me around. I came back to Chicago for holidays because Linda asked me to. Because my half-siblings, despite Robert's influence, had somehow turned out decent. Because somewhere in this cold, formal house, there were still memories of my mother's warmth. "Okay, got it," Jasmine said brightly, packing up her equipment. "These should be ready in about 2 weeks." As she left, Robert's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. "That's Jeremiah Wu," he said to Linda. "Mom's lawyer. My grandmother, Robert's mother, not mine, had passed away 3 weeks ago at 92. Eleanor Castellano had been a force of nature, a real estate mogul who'd built a portfolio of properties across the Midwest starting in the 1960s. She'd been sharp as a tack until the end, managing her properties from her assisted living facility until she had a stroke in her sleep. I'd loved Eleanor. Surprisingly, she'd loved me back. When Robert had tried to exclude me from family events, Eleanor had shut it down. "Sarah is family," she'd said more than once. "Her mother married into this family, which makes her my granddaughter." End of discussion. "Why is he calling on Christmas?" Linda asked nervously. "He said he wanted to do the will reading between Christmas and New Year's," Robert reminded her. "While everyone's in town." I didn't think he meant Christmas Day. The phone rang again. Robert answered, listened for a moment, and his expression grew more tense. "Yes, she's here. All of us are here." Pause. "Now. It's 3 in the afternoon on Christmas." Longer pause. "Fine. Yes. We'll be there in an hour." He hung up and looked at all of us. "Jeremiah wants to read the will today. He says it's time-sensitive and everyone needs to be present." "Everyone?" Megan asked. "What does that mean?" Robert's eyes slid to me, and I saw something flicker there, resentment maybe, or resignation. He specifically asked if Sarah was here. Said she needs to be present. Why would Grandma Eleanor include Sarah in the will? Tyler asked, genuinely confused. "No offense, Sarah, but you're not really." "Tyler," Linda warned. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. She's not actually related to Grandma." "Your grandmother clearly felt differently," Robert said stiffly. "Get your coats. We leave in 15 minutes." The drive to Jeremiah Wu's office was silent, except for the radio playing generic holiday music. I sat in the back of Robert's Mercedes, squished between Megan and Tyler, feeling like I was 12 again and awkwardly trying to fit into a family that had never quite made space for me. Jeremiah's office was in a high-rise downtown, still open despite the holiday. His assistant led us into a large conference room where the lawyer was already waiting, a thick folder in front of him. Jeremiah Wu was in his 60s, impeccably dressed even on Christmas, with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes behind rimless glasses. He'd been Eleanor's lawyer for 40 years. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he said as we settled into chairs around the table. "I know this is unusual timing, but Eleanor was very specific about when this reading should take place, and her instructions were that it happen while all parties were together in Chicago." "All parties?" Robert repeated, glancing at me again. "Yes." Jeremiah opened the folder. "Before we begin, I need to verify everyone's identity. Robert Castellano, Linda Castellano, Megan Castellano, Tyler Castellano, and Sarah Mitchell." "That's everyone," Robert confirmed. "Good. Then let's begin." Jeremiah pulled out a document. "This is the last will and testament of Eleanor Margaret Castellano, executed 6 months before her death and certified by 2 witnesses and a notary." 6 months. Eleanor had updated her will 6 months ago and never mentioned it. "I'll skip the legal preamble and get to the distribution of assets," Jeremiah continued. "Eleanor's estate is valued at approximately $47 million, consisting of 32 rental properties, several commercial buildings, stocks, bonds, and liquid assets." I heard Linda gasp. Robert went very still. I'd known Eleanor was wealthy, but $47 million was staggering. "The distribution is as follows," Jeremiah said, his voice carefully neutral. "To my son, Robert Castellano, I leave the sum of $100,000 and my collection of first edition books." Robert's face went red. "100,000? Out of $47 million. "Please let me finish," Jeremiah said firmly. "To my daughter-in-law, Linda Castellano, I leave $100,000 and my jewelry collection, excluding the pieces specified for Sarah." "Specified for Sarah?" Linda's voice was faint. "To my grandchildren Megan and Tyler Castellano, I leave $250,000 each, to be held in trust until age 30, and my condominium in Naples, Florida, to be shared equally between them." Megan and Tyler exchanged confused glances. $500,000 between them seemed generous until you did the math on what was left. Jeremiah looked directly at me now, and I saw something like approval in his expression. "To Sarah Mitchell, daughter of my beloved late daughter-in-law Jennifer Mitchell, I leave the remainder of my estate. This includes all rental properties, all commercial real estate holdings, all stocks and bonds, and all remaining liquid assets, estimated at approximately $45.7 million. The silence in the room was absolute. "That's impossible," Robert said finally, his voice strangled. "She's not even blood family. This will must be invalid. She coerced my mother, or—" "The will is entirely valid," Jeremiah interrupted. "Eleanor was of sound mind, and I have extensive documentation of her mental competency at the time of execution. Additionally, she left letters explaining her reasoning." He pulled out several envelopes. "These are to be read now, in the presence of all parties." He opened the first envelope, and I recognized Eleanor's handwriting on the letterhead. "To my son Robert," Jeremiah read, "you have spent your life believing that blood makes family. You married Jennifer, a wonderful woman who brought joy and light into our lives, and you treated her daughter Sarah as a temporary inconvenience rather than a gift. When Jennifer got sick, I watched you fulfill your obligations to her without ever really loving her stepdaughter. After Jennifer died, you tolerated Sarah's presence at family events because I insisted, but you never welcomed her. You never saw what I saw, a smart, kind, resilient young woman who loved her mother fiercely and who tried so hard to be part of a family that never fully accepted her." Robert's face had gone from red to white. "I'm leaving you $100,000 because you are my son and I love you," Jeremiah continued reading. "But you don't need my money. You have a successful career, a lovely wife, and 2 healthy children. What you need is a lesson in what family really means. Maybe losing an inheritance will teach you what a lifetime of lectures couldn't." Jeremiah set down that letter and picked up another. "To Megan and Tyler, you are good kids and I love you. The money I'm leaving you will help you start your adult lives. But you've both stood by and watched your father exclude your sister Sarah from family moments. You've benefited from the same privilege system that he perpetuates. Use this money wisely, and maybe learn to speak up when you see injustice, even in your own family." Megan was crying quietly. Tyler stared at his hands. "The final letter," Jeremiah said, "was to me. Would you like me to read it aloud, or would you prefer to read it privately?" "Aloud," I said, my voice barely working. "Everyone should hear it." He nodded and began. "My dearest Sarah, you are probably in shock right now, and I don't blame you. But I want you to understand why I'm doing this. When your mother married my son, she brought you into our family. You were 6 years old, grieving your father, trying to understand why your whole world had changed. I saw how hard you tried to fit in, to be perfect, to earn love that should have been freely given. Tears were running down my face now, hot and unstoppable. Over the years, I watched you grow into an extraordinary woman. You put yourself through design school working 3 jobs. You started your own business from nothing. You came back for holidays even though my son made it clear you weren't really wanted. You did all of this with grace and kindness and without bitterness. That strength, that resilience, that capacity to love people who don't always love you back. That's what family really is. This inheritance isn't charity, Jeremiah read. You've earned it by being the granddaughter I always wanted. Use it to build something beautiful. Use it to create the family you deserve, whether that's through blood, marriage, or choice. And know that I loved you, not because of your connection to Jennifer, but because of who you are. You are my granddaughter. Not step. Not half. Whole. Always. With all my love, Eleanor. The silence after he finished was broken by Linda's quiet sobbing. Megan had her face in her hands. Tyler looked gutted. And Robert. Robert looked like someone had pulled the foundation out from under his entire worldview. This is unacceptable, he said finally, but his voice had lost its conviction. I'll contest it. On the grounds of undue influence, or... You can try, Jeremiah said calmly. But I'll warn you that Eleanor anticipated that possibility. She left extensive documentation of her reasoning, including a video recording made in the presence of 2 psychiatrists who evaluated her mental state. She was extraordinarily thorough. He looked at Robert with something like pity. She hoped you'd accept this gracefully. That maybe it would help you understand what you've lost by holding so tightly to your definition of family. Robert stood abruptly. Linda. Kids. We're leaving. Linda stood but looked at me uncertainly. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For all of it. Your grandmother was right about everything. Mom, come on, Tyler said, tugging her arm. But Megan walked over to me instead. She put her arms around me in a fierce hug. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have said something. All those times. I'm so sorry. It's okay, I managed. It's not. But maybe now it can be. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. And congratulations. Grandma Eleanor knew what she was doing. She always did. After they left, Robert storming out, Linda and Tyler following uncertainly, Megan giving me one last apologetic look. I sat alone with Jeremiah Wu in the conference room, staring at the documents that had just upended my entire life. This is real, I asked finally. You're really inheriting approximately $45.7 million, he confirmed. Eleanor set everything up to make the transition as smooth as possible. I've been managing her properties for years, and I'm prepared to continue doing so if you'd like, or to help you find new management. There's no rush on any decisions. I started laughing, slightly hysterically. 6 hours ago, Robert was literally moving my chair out of a family photo. Now I'm a multimillionaire. Eleanor had a sense of irony, Jeremiah said with a slight smile. She planned the timing deliberately. She wanted Robert to exclude you one last time, to show his true colors, before revealing that you were the one she'd chosen. Chosen, I repeated. She chose me. She always chose you, Sarah. From the moment you entered her life. He pushed a business card across the table. This is my direct number. Call me when you've processed all this, and we'll start going through the details. But for now, go home. Have a drink. Call a friend. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. I drove back to my hotel in a daze. Not to Robert's house. I'd never been invited to stay there, even for holidays, but to a Hilton downtown where I'd booked a room. My phone started buzzing with texts before I even got to my room. Linda, I'm so sorry. For everything. You deserved better from all of us. Megan. Grandma was the smartest person I ever knew. She chose well. Love you, sis. Tyler. Dad's losing his mind, but he'll get over it. You earned this. Congrats. And then, surprisingly, one from Robert. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Please. I turned off my phone and sat on the hotel bed, Eleanor's letter in my hands, reading it over and over. Not step. Not half. Whole. Always. My grandmother, because she was my grandmother, blood or not, had seen me, had valued me, had chosen me. And in doing so, she'd given me more than money. She'd given me validation. Proof that I'd never been the problem. That family isn't about DNA. It's about showing up, loving freely, and choosing each other every day. I called my best friend Madison in Portland. "You're not going to believe what just happened," I said when she answered. "Try me." So I told her. Everything. The photo, the will reading, the letters, the inheritance. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Sarah," Madison finally said, "your grandmother was a badass." I laughed, tears streaming down my face again. "Yeah, she really was. So what are you going to do with $45 million? "I have no idea. Build something beautiful, I guess." That's what she told me to do. "Well, when you figure it out, I'm here. Your real family is here." After we hung up, I opened Eleanor's letter one more time, tracing the words with my finger. "Blood is thicker than water," Robert had said. But he'd gotten it wrong. The blood of the covenant, the family we choose, the bonds we forge through love and loyalty, that's what mattered. Eleanor had understood that. She'd lived it. And now, through her final act, she'd taught the rest of her family the same lesson. I just hoped they were wise enough to learn it.